Hi, my name is Engle, and I am a climate activist in the state of West Virginia here in central Appalachia. I am chairman of an organization called Mid-Ohio Valley Climate Action. We've been around for about 6 years. I'm also a co-chair of the Sierra Club Executive Committee for the chapter in West Virginia, and I'm on the board of directors for the West Virginia Rivers Coalition. I've been a climate activist and extremely interested in climate and related biodiversity, ecological, environmental causes for about 7 years. And so it's been incredibly important work for me. I'm also a member of an organization called Mid-Ohio Valley. We use that one a lot, as in Mid-Ohio River Valley. Mid-Ohio Valley Atheists and Humanists. I myself am an atheist humanist. I am an atheist, sort of represents what I am not. A humanist sort of represents, the moral philosophy for who and what I am. And I subscribe to the 10 commitments, they're called, of humanism. If you get a chance to look those up from the American Humanist Association, those are sort of guiding principles for me. I want to talk for just a minute today. I'm grateful for this opportunity from my friend and colleague, Anthony Underwood, to talk to you from an Central Appalachian perspective, offered from the state of West Virginia and this Southeast Ohio region along the Ohio River about a few things. And the thing I really want to focus on today in this message that I'm working on here today is how important climate action is right now, and how the federal government has the unique ability right now to take that action, to focus on how important that is. We are in infrastructure deal talks right now at the congressional level, at the federal level. And there is bipartisan legislation that Senator Joe Manchin of here in West Virginia has helped negotiate, but even more importantly, there is legislation that would have to be passed with no Republican support through what's called budget reconciliation in the Senate that is far more important. And there's a Democratic Party proposal right now for about $3.5 trillion worth of spending on that initiative. What's really important that we do right now is focus on how that's not even enough. The $3.5 trillion, let alone the bipartisan package, is not enough. There is legislation right now that really should be the focus of these talks that is called the Thrive Agenda. And Thrive is a acronym. It's an acronym, and Thrive stands for Transform, Heal, Renew by Investing in a Vibrant Economy legislation. So we really need to be focused very intently on the Thrive Agenda. And the Thrive legislation in particular, which would invest about $10 trillion over the next 10 years between now and the 2030s in renewable energy, energy efficiency, the build out of electric vehicle charging and related infrastructure, and the expanded popularity and purchase of electric vehicles by U.S. consumers, basically changing our transportation infrastructure, our built infrastructure and environment, and the energy that powers all of it in a renewable, sustainable way. There would be an enormous focus on sustainable agriculture and development. And then Representative Jamal Bowman in the House of Representatives from New York has also introduced a Green New Deal for public schools. This needs to be part of any infrastructural legislative package that there is. So we need to be focused on the Thrive Agenda. We need to be focused on Green New Deal style legislation, even though that, the Green New Deal has become sort of a catchphrase for the political right. It's been demonized, we still need to focus on the Thrive Agenda and Green New Deal type legislation that is going to move us in the right direction, that is going to get us down the path we need to go, because climate action cannot wait. It is absolutely deadly serious. I am a non-theist secular activist, as I mentioned. I'm an ally, or actually the term I prefer is an accomplice to the LGBTQ plus community. I'm certainly an accomplice for women and their reproductive rights and protections of access to safe abortion procedures. I am all of that. I certainly advocate on behalf of Black Lives Matter and on behalf of the teaching of complete and accurate history, even if you don't call it critical race theory, all of this complete and accurate U.S. history with regard to BIPOC communities, Black, Indigenous, and other people of color communities. I certainly realize that all of those social justice issues must be taken as a whole and not siloed off from climate justice. It's all part of social justice. But the thing about that is we can make incremental progress when it comes to things like racial justice and equity, and when it comes to things like LGBTQ plus and women's reproductive justice and equity. And we have made incremental progress. There have been protective court decisions. There have been legislative wins. There have been societal and cultural and political and economic wins across all these spectrums. But one thing about climate justice, one thing about the climate crisis, is that it cannot wait. We can't just make incremental progress on that. It can't be 2 steps forward and 1 back. We can't afford that. Atmospheric physics prohibits us from taking that kind of time to take action, to take immediately needed, necessary action right now, today. We have to act right now today, and it starts with this infrastructure legislation. And there are other things going on the margins that are very important, like the Biden administration's protection of the Tongass National Forest in Alaska from old growth logging and from roads and being built into the forest and things like that, preserving those old growth forests that are strong carbon sinks and sequester carbon out of the atmosphere. So there are some public lands wins, there are some regulatory wins at the EPA. The Biden administration is obviously far more friendly for climate action than its predecessor. There is progress being made, but right now it's at the margins, and we have to act in a way that is more concerted than just at the margins. We can't just have marginal victories, step-by-step incremental victories. We have to have major victories. And we have to have them as fast as we possibly can because atmospheric physics demands it. So I'm excited about this opportunity to let you all know that in Appalachia, in central Appalachia, in a state like West Virginia, there are those of us working on these issues, supporting the Thrive Act, supporting the democracy reforms necessary like the For the People Act to make the Thrive Act possible, and other climate legislation, infrastructure legislation, jobs legislation, unionization legislation possible. We are advocating for these things, not just the Thrive Act, but the PRO Act, the Equality Act, numerous other pieces of legislation that without major democracy reforms like the ones in the For the People Act, in the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, when it comes to DC statehood and Puerto Rican self-determination, without those democracy changes, we're not going to see all these other crucial pieces of legislation. We're not going to have the kind of public policy action that the moment demands. So we must act on this in the most concerted way possible, in the most immediate way possible. And there are those of us in Appalachia, even in the state of West Virginia, traditionally a coal state, an extraction colony, essentially is what we are, a sacrifice zone to power the rest of the nation and provide products to the rest of the nation and world. There are those of us here who are fighting the expansion of oil, coal, and gas, of plastics and petrochemicals with everything we have, and trying from a public policy perspective, from a regulatory perspective, from a legal perspective in the courts, all the way across the board to do better. So please hear us. Please know that we are here. Please don't forget that action is being taken even in an area like this, and we're here in solidarity in this fight. Thank you.